All right, everybody. This is our second discussion video. As always, anything we discuss in this video is not a financial advice or on research. We are just here to talk about, what happened on the week, just some trader talks. And today is July 12th, 2024. And all right, that's pretty much it. Introduction. Anybody want to ask, or Mo, if you want to take it over?
Yeah, man, I'm fucking tired as shit. Without further ado, man, another week in the books. Some
Randy,
good days, some tough
you want to go in
days.
there?
What's on people's minds? Does anybody want to get this started?
I watched the podcast yesterday. It was pretty cool, and it's happening right now with IVP, which is so super funny.
Yeah, it was. It was. I think that ultimately all of the like I was going to say, oh, that was a timely video because we saw a lot of traps today. But the truth is that they're there every day. You know what I mean? So that's why it was. It's important to know all these little things. But yeah, IVP did. IVP is just absolutely working it.
Thank you. Thanks for the video, I guess.
Oh yeah, we got a lot to still go over, lots of other topics, and then eventually the idea is that once all of the concepts are, gone over, or at least most of the important ones, then we can put it all together and and then you could you know really have actionable um, have could do something with it because just one little thing it doesn't really help you trade, to be honest, although you could, you could, but it's just not ideal.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it'll take us about I want to say about 8 to 10 weeks, one video at a time, to go over the important stuff, and then it's all there. But how's everybody's week, man? Don't all go at once. So the
Yeah, I can
idea,
go.
yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, pretty okay week. Um, we traded Monday. It was red Monday. I forgot the tickers. I mean, at this point in time, I have to go back and look. But I know Zap was one of them. Ran the highs. A very difficult day. Tuesday I took off. I'd just been traveling so much and figured it was a good reset. I know that was the day SNGX happened, and then maybe some other names were running as well. And then
Right.
Wednesday, I remember you coming in and saying that like, oh, like tomorrow's gonna be nice, especially if we get a lot of runners. And then we had that discussion in the morning of like, oh, what can we compare this to? Is this like, are people thinking of this as like a sympathy to like SGX, or is it a broader market theme? But I had a pretty good day Wednesday. I think we came in with the right mentality that like, all right, a lot of these shorts either blew out or exhausted, and like this is the time when a lot of names are running to like now like push it. And then we had Thursday did okay. We had the conversation where um, Moshe like spoke to me about this dynamic ages ago, or maybe not ages ago, weeks ago, about how like if in a week cycle, if like short sellers were just like weirdly winning really easily pre-market, and like things just faded as people wake up, and like they start to see that like, oh, things faded and like there's only one name left or one name's running, they're all gonna ape it. I remember that day like was fighting it, and I was like, man, like I reached out to him and I was like, yeah, this was tough. And Moshe was like, yeah, bro, like why are you fighting like the one thing that's up? Like, of course, everyone's thinking that. I was like, oh yeah, of course. And so like took that one and like kind of came in with that same mentality Thursday when that happened. And then Moshe brought up a good point of like yes, like that logic and that dynamic is real, but like that was during a week cycle, and that was during a cycle where we would have like 1, 2 runners a day, maybe three max. And in that environment where oftentimes there's a clear pretty girl too, it's just so different from like this hot cycle where like everyone's been beaten down over the last few days, and like you're just getting your time to win. Like you got to take advantage of those times. And I think that was a really good point because there were trades as I looked back on where I was like, yeah, like that was a spot, that was a spot. So it's a good lesson of like, as much as you want to apply one dynamic to the other, the nuances really matter. And I'm learning that as I go, and I feel like it's just constantly evolving. And then today was, I would think everyone's gonna say like a little bit harder or a good amount harder than the last 2 days,
On the short side, yeah.
for sure. And then so I ended red today. I lost on QLGN, lost on I like Feeler and IVP, and then made some back in Toyo. But this is what it is. I think it's just part of the game. I haven't gone
Right
in
on.
and reviewed it yet, but yeah, that's where
So
I'm at.
to go over what you said and just expand on it a bit, because there's a really good lesson there, is that so what you were referring to. I'll rephrase it in my own way.
Please, yeah.
So Brian, during the times to where it's a weaker cycle or even a medium cycle, there's not a lot of runners. You're going to have some mornings where you have the pre-market runners, and they sort of all fade into open or right off of either right before open or right at open. It just fades super easy, and it's a weak cycle, so there's not a lot of new runners coming around. So all we're left with is the old runners, and they worked well in the morning, real fast. And those dynamics do happen often. And when those dynamics happen, then I think it's best to just be hands off. After that, you caught it. You didn't catch it. You didn't catch it. And that was sort of the conversation that Brian's talking about. And where the misunderstanding was is that on Thursday, which was a wildly eventful day, he nailed a couple, like whatever the pre-market shorts were, and he was like, cool, I nailed it. I'm not going to go to the well again. I'm out. And so he was, you were thinking about that dynamics that we have both just mentioned, but the nuance that you were missing indeed was that this is not a weak cycle, and things get crowded when there isn't a lot of runners. When there's a lot of runners, it's the exact opposite that you should be doing, which is you should just be going from name to name to name to name. You know what I mean? Go sort of following the volume, again, either long or short, doesn't matter. And all of that I think can be tied into the sort of the morning voice note and the little bit of the explanation that I put on it, which is what kind of a day did I expect today, sort of the day that we got and why. And then I went into more detail as to why I thought that was the kind of day that we're going to have. And the detail, you can use it for really any day, right? And so I think that there's a couple of things. There's really, I think, two important takeaways here. Number one, you don't apply anything that you learn to everything. You have to apply them to the right situations. Like you, for example, saying, "Oh, I'm done in the morning because I nailed it, and everything's going to get crowded after that." Sure, depends on the cycle, right? And the other thing is the how I looked at today. You can use that trick on any day, which is when things are neither here nor there, then you can't really make a determination. But when you have a day like Thursday where it was just short home run after it was just home run after home run after home run after home run for the shorts, of course they're going to come in today expecting that. And of course, when you expect that, the opposite will happen because you're crowding that, right? So it doesn't matter if it was it's why day after Black Swans work on the reverse of that, because now everyone's expecting longs to work really well and then they don't, right? So it's the exact opposite of Thursday, where shorts worked really well. You're expecting that Friday. So stuff that's vanilla, neither here nor there, you can't really make a determination off of that for the following day. But when something is extraordinary on a singular day, then you can pretty much expect that everyone will expect that. And when everyone expects that, you can expect the opposite in reality. So I think, it takes time it's so easy to say, oh, well, you learn something, don't just apply it to everything. Oh, cool, thanks, Captain Obvious. But what, you know what I mean? Like it takes time, and that's okay, and we just go through this little by little. So that was good stuff to go over, I think. On Monday, by the way, I think it was SVMH, OPTT. I don't remember what else was going that day, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
who can remember? Monday is 1,000 years ago now.
I know. I know.
Yeah. So, anybody have any thoughts, any questions? You could just throw out a topic. I could, go into it. Just what's on your minds. This is directly for you, each and every one of you. So, what's on your mind? Hit me, and I'll do my best.
Do you ever trade the big caps, Tesla, Nvidia, first red days, or CPI?
Yeah, so I do. I do not really big caps, like mid caps, like stuff that's like between 500 million market cap to 1, 2, 3 billion. Um, every now and then I'll trade an Nvidia or a Tesla. But the thing about them is that um, as far as because what I am by definition, and really one way to describe it is I'm an opportunistic discretionary trader, and so very very obvious opportunities in the larger caps happen less often, but when they do, it's you can trade larger, and so sure when I have my vehicles that I like in the mid cap space. Like there's larger sort of boats that like Soon obviously comes to mind. It's a thing that it's a vehicle that I trade a lot whenever it's in play, or I trade it almost all the time whenever it's in play, because there's like the thing about those guys is that you get to know them. They're always around. So when you get to know a vehicle, whenever it's every few months, it'll do something that you know how to trade. And it being a larger float, a larger market cap, real company, so to speak, you can get way bigger on size, and that's what I do. So I'll trade them pretty rarely, right? Like every one of these vehicles, I'll trade it like once every few months. But when I do, I'll trade it way bigger than I trade the small caps, and it's cool.
You're talking about first red days or like other setups, like on them?
I mean, I guess you could call it that. I mean, even Nvidia, that day that I was zoned in on it and completely messed up that trade. Yeah, that was the first red day. Even on a quadrillion market cap, it's still, yeah, that's what it was. But it's not exclusively that. It's whatever opportunity may arise. You know what I mean? Like oftentimes for those though, it will be like sort of on the blow off of a multi-day run. Yeah, because that's when, like, if you think that a multi-day run is sort of a slam dunk on small caps, if you get a large cap behaving like a small cap, it's much more of a slam dunk. It's a much more layup of a trade, and still I fucked it up on Nvidia. But sometimes I don't fuck it up, and those days are great.
And also Chewy, with the news.
Chewy, so obviously the memes, right? So GameStop, AMC, Chewy on that day, SOUN, on the sort of smaller market cap, but still not necessarily small cap. Small cap, obviously, NKLA, MULN, CEI. Like, these are vehicles that you can come into again and again and again every time that they do their thing, and you just show up opportunistically, and sort of play cleanup, and make the money then.
I've seen some people trade like just one ticker or two tickers like every day, like Tesla and Nvidia, and they trade it every day. They kind of
Yep.
make and lose money. Like, does that work? Is there like an edge there, trading every day?
That is a great question, actually, because I know those guys too. And I'm gonna lean on no. Um, I like some guys, sure, but um, I don't think that. I mean, I don't like. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to make real money, or are you trying to just be in the market every day? Because, it, I mean, there were times where certainly a Tesla will offer some opportunities day after day, but I mean, you're training a single name. It's just day after day after day. It's not really going to do. You're not going to have a lot of opportunities every day, and you're just going to be like, nah, man. Like I just don't see it. I think that like you go where the opportunity is. You don't like reverse that. You don't say no. Opportunity will be here where I decide. It is where it is, and your job is to recognize where it is.
Yeah, yeah. Doesn't make sense to me either, but like I see them every day trading the same name. Especially Tesla.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Tesla does have um, a good amount of opportunities. It's sort of it's why I used it as the example. I'm like, okay, well, maybe except for Tesla, because Tesla does um, move a lot, but still, you're asking yourself to interpret every move of that stock and understand every move of it so that you can consistently make money if you're trading it all the time. All right, sure. If you could do it, more power to you. It's what like whatever works for you. You know.
Speaking on that, what do you think of scalping? Like, so like I was on Kenfo, like I think yesterday, and I saw a guy like made 1.5 million total, but when I went to his trade, they were like $100, $200, $300, and win and lose most of them. Do you believe in scalping? And these guys, when they scalp these few cents and they take profits?
Well, let me ask you two questions. Do I believe in it? Sure. Are you searching for a style? Are you searching to decide if you're going to be trading a single name or like what is this? Is that what these
Kinda.
questions are for? Yeah.
Kind of, and also I just want to see like a perspective from a real trader because we don't know anybody who's actually like uh trading like I guess real. And I just want to see your perspective on these things. Do they
Okay.
work? Do you know that these guys they don't work?
Yeah, yeah.
So I
Scalping,
mean,
scalping works. But to your deeper question, um, I think that you have to find. This is one of those lessons that it's so redundant, but it is so true. Um, you have to find what works for you. I would tell you, don't trade foreign exchange. Don't trade the SPY. Like you're not going to make money there. The learning curve and the odds are stacked way too much against you. Like so avoid those. I would also suggest avoid trading the same name every day, but not as strongly as I suggest avoiding the first two things that I said, which is trading FX and trading the just the E-mini every day or something. Those guaranteed don't even consider it. Um, Trading a single name every day, it's possible, but I don't recommend it either. Outside of those three, um, everything is possible to make money in it. You just have to find, and this is the redundant advice that could not be more true. You have to find what works for your personality because trading will push you to your edge, and you have to be able to perform well in the most difficult of circumstances. And that will you only have a chance of doing that well if you're doing something that vibes with the kind of person that you are. So some people are, they like scalpers are people that they're not interested in the big picture. They're not interested in understanding the entire chart or histories or stuff. They just focus on the level two or whatever because that fits them. They're really quick gratification, quick. That's their style. Somehow it fits their personality. You know what I mean? Like whereas other people, some people love to play ping pong. Some people are more suited for golf. You know what I mean? And so you gotta find what fits your style. Are you like the type of dude that thinks fast, acts fast? Are you the type of guy that likes to go slow and take your time before you make a decision and all that stuff? So everything's fair game except for trading the e-minis and foreign exchange. You just have to figure out what kind of person you are and find a style that fits that, and then become a master at that. And so that's really what I would say to you as far as your questions.
Gotcha, gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Anybody else have topics in mind for this week? We could talk about um, the week that passed, why some of the anything. Anybody
I
else?
have a
Something?
question.
Shoot.
You traded BDRX yesterday
Yes, sir.
and you entered very close to the open in pre-market. And my question is, why didn't you wait for the open? Because it could have spiked as well.
Right. So I'm gonna say something that's way too general, but I'm gonna say it anyway as the beginning to an answer. So when you look at the pre-market, action on small caps, particularly for enough time, you sort of start to see a pattern emerge. And one of the patterns that you're gonna see, like for example, couple years up until about a year ago, I would trade pre-market eyes fucking closed because every morning it was the same thing. Or not every morning, but like there was a timing component. Like, for example, it used to be 4 a.m. comes around, runners start to appear. Some of them go crazy. The ones that go crazy sort of find their top at around 5:30 a.m., give or take. And so I didn't give a shit what it was. If it was 5:30 and it was peaking out, that's what I would short. And at about 7 a.m., those things would find a bottom, and then some of them would rebounds from them, some of them wouldn't, and I wouldn't have to guess which one it is. I would short 5:30 a.m. and I'd cover 7 a.m. Really, I was working at the time, and then from there on, there was an additional dynamic from 7 a.m. into 9:30 a.m., etc. And so there are these sort of patterns. Now that timing component doesn't work anymore that way now, but it's just sort of an example of something that I would do just because. And one of the other things that I still see to this day very often is that when a stock pushes substantially into 9:30 a.m., like it just pushes into 9:30 a.m., sometimes when there are a few other boxes that are checked, that's the top. They are using, it's really like, I could say this in a pseudo smart way and say, sometimes actors come in and they take advantage of the pre-market liquidity, illiquidity, to push something up that they otherwise could not have achieved in regular trading hours when liquidity is there and sellers are there. And so a lot of times when something pushes substantially right into 9:30 a.m., they're just, they know this is as far as they're going to push it. They're taking advantage of the illiquidity time. Now you say to yourself, okay, well, how do you know? Okay, what was running on that day? Predominantly nano caps, right? You're talking about when VLCN ran and like all these like sub 1 million floats. What's BDRX's float? It's not a nano, bro. It's like 10 million float.
Yeah, it was 10 million.
Right, compared to everything else. Compared to everything else that was running that day that was sub 1 million float or a million float or some shit like that. And so you take that and you say, okay, what was it running? On phase 2 news, what I think about phase 1, phase 2 in the mice? Nothing at all, right? It was phase 3 or some other thing, okay. But you're talking to me about a phase 2 news, and it's running super hard right into the open, and it's the largest float by a landslide compared to everything else that's moving. That's the reason why. And oftentimes when people ask me questions like that and I give an answer like that, I think the first thing that they want to think of is like a follow-up question that I receive often in these situations is, well, what would you have done if it had gone against you? Right? And I mean, who really knows? But the idea of shorting front side, there's always a question in my mind: if I'm wrong, how wrong can I be? Because at front side, it's sort of look. I mean, it was also a looking left area, right? So we had large float, phase two news, running right into open, looking left area. You know what I mean? So like when I was saying earlier that when something runs right into open, together with other boxes being checked, it might be that opportunity. These are the other boxes that I meant, right? So you can see all those boxes. That's sort of, those are all together the reason why.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts? Any other? I mean, go ahead.
So I wanted to ask about the Wednesday and Thursday of this week. So like
Yeah.
Wednesday and Thursday, good action. We had a lot of runners. You anticipated in advance that there would be good action and that we would have a lot of runners.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec. No, this is
this is just a resale, right? There's nothing.
okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So midday, we had a lot of runners Wednesday, Thursday, in the middle of the week, and you knew that going in. And I saw you were very aggressive in how you traded them. What would have been, but it wasn't a day after Black Swan on either of those days. What if I showed you some execution? What would it be an example of something where if I showed it to you, you'd be like, nah, man, that's too crazy for this week. But if it had been a day after Black Swan, that would have been a good trade. Like, what's the nuance there? How do you view those two dynamics differently?
I didn't understand the question, but let me just, I'd ask you to repeat that question, but I just want to throw something in there. What I was referring to when I was, throwing my ideas on what I think the action might be on those days, I was referring to the cycle being super hot. So you can tell when the cycle picks up a lot. And when the cycle picks up a lot, even if it's not going to be a day after Black Swan, it's still, if you can expect a lot of activity, then that's still very, very ideal for short sellers for reasons that I'm sure you understand why if you don't ask me. So having said that, can you ask me that question again about the executions? I didn't catch that.
Concisely. What, if you were viewing this middle of the week as a cycle picking up and getting hotter, but not a day after Black Swan?
Yes.
How would you have traded things differently if it were a day after Black Swan? How do you view those two dynamics differently?
That's a tough question. That's a good question. I love it. I'm not sure that I would look at them terribly differently. Is really the answer, because I'll tell you what the nuance is, but I don't know that how much of a difference it makes. So the nuance is that on a day after Black Swan, there is a singular thing that everyone is looking for, which is a redo of yesterday, and whatever. It was a day after Black Swan, a single event happened the day before on a single stock, and everyone is looking for that again. Whereas in a hot cycle, like we had Wednesday, Thursday, it wasn't about, a singular thing that everyone is looking for. It's simply that the cycle is hot. So there's a lot of activity. Now, what's similar to both of these is that when you have a lot of runners simultaneously, or one after the other, or both, a few simultaneously, then after that, a few more simultaneously, right? Then what you have is a dispersion of the volume. And so it's a potentially ideal situation for short sellers, because when the volume is dispersed, then you're going to have a lot more reversion to the mean works in that environment. Whereas when there's full attention on a single name, sometimes reversion to the mean doesn't happen in that environment, which reversion to the mean is what I trade, or what a lot of us trade. And so where the nuance comes into play, and it's a small nuance, is that coming after a day after Black Swan, two things for sure. What everyone is looking for. So all of these names, that when they look like a sympathy, they are a sympathy, right? And you also know for near certainty that there will not be another black swan. Now, on Wednesdays and Thursdays, or when it's just simply a very hot cycle, you don't know those two things. You know different things. First of all, a black swan could happen. So you have to watch out for that. Second of all, like you have to recognize what is the theme or themes that are going on, understand it, understand the volatility that, you know, sort of like for example, on Thursday when we had, you know, Ford and LCFY and, you know, Nexi and Lord, who remembers all the other, like whatever the hell they were, you could see all of them run at least, you know, 100%, 200%, 300%, right? And so, and you could see that the theme is nanofloats, right? Submillis. And so once you catch on to that, once you understand what the theme is, and once you understand what's the general volatility that that sort of chasers are chasing until they're like, okay, that's as far as, you know what I mean? What's sort of the average percent runners what's the average percent gains that sort of these top out in? Then you can use those two things. And then we can go to your question and say, well, let's judge your executions based on understanding what kind of things are running and how much they are running, and where you covering your left tail, because that's the, you know, like something that I sort of don't do after a day after Black Swan, but I do on days like Wednesday, Thursday. You know what I mean? So does that answer your question?
Really well. Thank you very much for that.
Sure, of course. I don't think it was a coin toss. The nuance there is that you have to notice when the cycle. So when we talk about the cycle a lot, like sort of the holy grail of that is, and it's not that hard. It just takes experience, but like you want to be aware of it as it's turning. And that's the hard part that does come with experience. So once you see that the cycle is starting to pick up, then all of a sudden there's, you know, on Wednesday there was more runners and they ran a little bit more. And you know what I mean? And so you have to like start to sniff, and it doesn't mean you know, but you suspect, right? You come in, you're like, yeah, I think I was talking. I personally, I think I was talking about the cycle getting hotter and hotter. So I was suspecting it. And once you see the first runner, you can't know. But if you see one runner come, if you're already suspecting that we're in a strong cycle, and then like you said, we didn't get necessarily a lot of simultaneous ones, but you get one and then it goes away, and you get another one and then it goes away. On the second one, you should already start to say, okay, look, I've showed up to work. I'm suspecting that this is what it is. I'm gonna play this. Like somebody, I'll tell you what I think might have been the absolute best trade of that day outside of stuff that I traded was FORD. Whoever put it in the room, one of you guys put it in the room. By the time FORD came around, which was much later in the day, it was crystal clear what the day was about, and you already knew that LCFY was the one with the algo in it. Nexi was probably the best one just because of the dissolution vote and stuff. So it was just shaking out the anticipatory shorts there. But Ford was nothing. It was just a blip on what was, like the theme of the day. And so they had no participation in it, no algos in it. It was just nothing, but it gave you like 100 plus percent. You know what I mean? And so, but it's not necessary. It doesn't matter which one of these they were, because the 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 cycle was clearly heating up. And so that's really what it is. And you've asked me that same question about last week, or somebody did, I'm sorry. And it was like, no, I didn't know on the first one. On the second, okay. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So where was I more defensive pre 8 a.m. is the question. I think in that is sort of a question about how did I interpret the dynamics of the day between what I expected and what I was seeing. So I just want to sort of correct something that you said about what I said. What I said was not exactly what you said. I wasn't expecting either one or the other. I was expecting one. I was expecting it to be weaker and more crowded today, which would have been, a much less ideal situation for the shorts. But what I said was, if we do get a bunch of transient runners come and go, that negates my theory about today. So my theory was that short everything ran yesterday and everything faded yesterday. So today I was expecting still some strength, but crowdedness into that strength, because people are going to expect what happened yesterday, and that just never fucking works. When people are expecting what happened yesterday, no matter what that thing is. And I was saying the way that I'm going to be wrong on that, or the way that today doesn't work out as a crowded, difficult day for shorts, is if we start to get runners come in, and then it just negates that theory. So was I defensive? Sure, because my expectation was that today will be difficult for shorts. I was the opposite of defensive. I don't know, man. Like I was saying, show me that there are more runners coming, and I will not be defensive. But that never really happened. And another discussion about sort of gauging the cycle, you gauge like, oh, it's beautiful, sweetie. Daddy's on the phone right now. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Where's Molly?
Molly's over there. So about the cycle in general, you will get a feel for the cycle as you focus on it, as it comes and goes. But one thing that I will say is it's sort of this, right? On the beginning of a cycle, you start to see more runners than you were used to in previous days or weeks, and they're running further than you're used to. And then at some point, it sort of blows off, and you get a day like yesterday where it's just absolutely bananas, right? Runner after runner after runner after runner. And you have to recognize that when that day comes, what you're expecting, you don't know how long it's going to last, but what you're expecting is now this. So the days after that, less runners, less percentage. But that's when you throw in the reverse psychology, where you're like, look, now we're on the back end of that particular cycle. So now it's going to get crowded. And I have, like, this is not the first time. This, I like Molly, let me see if I can jog your memory, where we have been here before. We have been at the ends of the cycle where I said, look, it's damn, there was a name, I can't remember. There was a name at the very end of the last really strong cycle that I told you this thing, like it black swan, and I told you this thing black swan because it's the end of a strong cycle and it's ebbing and things get crowded.
Verb, VERB.
That's right. And so we've been here before. This thing repeats over and over and over again. In the same way, there is something that, again, going into the cycle, again, jogging, seeing if I could jog Molly's memory. There are times, in fact, this happened this week as well, right? You have times where the cycle is strong, but it does not really fade. And so shorts get smashed and smashed. And what's our expectation after that is that for the next day or two after that, it's still going to be really strong, but it's not going to have the strength to hold on to those gains. So there's going to be really, really sweet fades, right? And so those are the days where I show up when the cycle is really strong. And I know that, like, for a day or two or three, it was strong without any respite for the shorts. That's when I come in, because on the days after that, I expect still strength, but serious reversions to the mean. And and Molly, this particular dynamic is something that me and Molly have, witnessed together and anticipated together multiple times. And so these are the things to expect. These are the types of things to expect from cycles, and it happens over and over and over again the same way. So sort of my job in this particular capacity is to alert you guys to these patterns, and then it's your job to observe on this cycle and the next one and the next one until it clicks, and then you see it yourself. And then you can make those plans. You could be like, oh, you can make the same predictions I make with the same level of accuracy. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Anyone else?
I got a question, but it's very general, but I don't know if you want to answer it, but I'm curious about the Ford parabolic that you just mentioned, that it was a great trade. I'm not very experienced with micro float parabolics, and I would like to know how you would have executed it and why.
I gave you a perfect lower high. Did it not?
Oh yeah, it did. So you didn't short on. You wouldn't have shorted the actual parabolic, but the lower high.
If I came into that day deciding to trade that theme, I probably would have shorted the parabolic. But where I'd put most of my size, but it's sort of irrelevant, because where I'd put most of my size would be on the lower high. And the thought process going into it was that you had nano after nano after nano going. And so clearly somebody is going through a list, right? And in fact, there's a conversation needs to be had about that, but that's for a different time. But somebody's going through a list, right? They were going through a list. And that you could see what were the focus, what was the focus of those people and what wasn't. And it was sort of clear that Ford was not going to be a focus. I don't know if clear, but let's say me with my level of experience, I would have assumed that it's not going to be a focal point. And so I would have had enough bravery, let's call it, to hit it front side in spite of the float, in spite of it being front side and all that stuff, but I would not have a lot of size. Where I would have size is on that lower high. And the reason why I would have size on that lower high is not because it's a lower high and we short lower highs or anything like that. The reason is because of the thesis that I laid out, that this is just not going to be the focus. It's too late in the day. The volume isn't there. The attention, the focuses are already known, right? It's LCFY just for the algo, NEXI just to destroy the smart shorts. This is just a drive-by. And if it is a drive-by, then the lower high is what confirms that thesis, not just some random ass lower high. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see. Interesting.
Yeah, but it was Nano Day, you know what I mean? And so on, on Nano Float days, you have to know nanos. You have to know how they move. You can't just there. It's you got to make sure you have some experience under your belt there. I think because nanos just come with extra risk is all.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's also completely different to other parabolics. I don't know. Another question I would ask you is: do you use Bollinger Bands to gauge the parabolic in any way, or are you just using price and tape?
Yeah, so I mean, like when people say tape, I think they mean literal tape. I don't give a damn about the level 2, and I don't give a damn about time and sales. I purely read the 1 minute chart. No Bollinger Bands, no anything like that. No, like I just have VWAP, and that's it. And even that is just the way that I do it is. I obviously experienced, but there's two things that I will say about that. What I'm focused on is okay. What kind of it? Like first of all, instrument category. Nanos. Okay, I have a library in my mind of how nanos behave. If it's not nanos, if it's like sort of middle of the pack float wise as far as small caps go, like the 4 or 5 million floats. Okay, I have a library in my mind of how those how they sort of blow off, what kind of parabolics they do and stuff like that. And so what I do is contextualize the instrument to what it can do. And then the thing that I look at is the volume. So the volume really informs me. And so I look for volume blow-offs. But like ideally looking lefts exist, and then either it's right into it, over it, and back below it, whatever it might be. But it's really just getting familiar with what kind of float can do what, and then what does a blow off look like for that particular float. And we do have, as I mentioned in the video in the beginning of the video that we posted yesterday, that is on my list of things to go over, what kind of floats can do what. And so that's sort of how I do it.
All right, great insight. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Anybody else? Hi, it's hard. Yeah, go ahead. No?
Oh, hey, Mo. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no, I lost you. Anybody else hear him? Is it just me?
can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I said just to follow up on the Ford trade that you mentioned. So I get the
Yeah.
thesis that it's just a random runner, most likely a pump and dump. Highly probable that it's that because we had, people who were focusing on CFY and the Nexi.
Yeah.
And we also had like a 8 level on the daily. So you mentioned that there was like a lower high that it gave, but
Yes.
I was looking at it at the time and it looked like, it's going to go into a halt up into 715, and then we had the bids, but then they kind of dumped it. The spread was also a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my question is, how do you enter those? Because you said you put your max size over there. You would have put your max size over there, right? So is that like a limit order you're expecting? Or is it after you see the halt fail and then you just kind of hit it in? Because
So
given
I
the
wanna.
spread,
Yeah.
sometimes that kind of EV would shift. Like if you're, you chase it down and then it halts up on you. I don't know if that makes sense completely.
Right.
Given the
So
thin name again, yeah.
yeah, right. And that's really why it's so much of an issue, because it's so thin. But I want to just revert back to what like intentionally when I was talking about the lower high, then I later referred to it again. I said it's not the perfect spot because it's the lower high. It's the perfect spot because of the thesis. The thesis, which is how you sort of set up this question, as you said, you understand that, attention is elsewhere. This is just, a real, like a hit and run that's, not going to really stick because there are already several of these particular themes that are currently sticking, right? And so I purposefully put most of the weight of the decision to trade this on the thesis itself and not on the price action, because that's to me the biggest sort of, why was that a good trade and how might I catch something like that again in the future, is that
Yeah.
Situation. Once that is in, you're looking for a confirmation, and so now your question becomes trade management. And on a trade management perspective, look, man, you know that it's a thin name. You know that you might be wrong. You have a thesis that it's going to work out this way, but you don't know that that's going to be right.
Yeah.
And so as far as how to go into it, look, I just want to point out that one of the things that you mentioned as a potential sort of problem is not a problem. It's confirming your thesis. The spread, the lack of volume, it's confirming the master thesis. There shouldn't, if this is gonna rip your face, it's gonna
There
need the
should be
volume,
bidders.
right? And so the fact that there is a spread, the fact that the volume on it was so low compared to all the other ones, it's confirming your thesis that this is not going to be a focal point, hopefully. And so now all we're left with is like risk management. And from that perspective, you're absolutely right. You have to cover your tail. What if this does go? And so, look, how are you going to do? I mean, I don't think there's anything really important that I could throw in on that. Just understand, like, ask yourself, okay, what's the, you have high of day to the left above you. You know what I mean? So you can just sort of do the math from there and say, okay, here's the size that I'm comfortable with. And you don't have to put that all in one shot. You can just 10%, everything's okay. All right. Another 10%, everything's okay. Another 20%, you know what I mean? Or however you want to do it. But I think I just want to put the maximum weight on the thesis itself, because that's the reason why. And as long as the action is confirming that, then, that's the execution signal, but the why is not that.
Yeah, got it. And yeah, I just wanted to point out there was another ticker with a similar kind of chart which came up in pre-market, I think HSCS or something, which also spiked to like 7 and then dumped to like 4. Pretty similar.
BCFS?
No, HSCS or something like that.
All right. Yeah, I mean, HSCS, let's see. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was just, yesterday was an absolutely nuts nano day, and I have really heavy hitter friends that trade really, 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 really big size, and when and they had a really great day on Thursday. They sent me their P&Ls and shit, and it makes you want to kill yourself. And what they did is they didn't really overthink it. They just went, they threw a couple 100,000 shares, or 500,000 or 1 million shares short on every single runner, and they're like, I'm gonna cover it, everything when it's all said and done, and I bet you I'm gonna be super green, and they were, you know what I mean? So we're not them, but there's still that opportunity, and the opportunity where, you know, for normal guys like me and you, is to just be a little bit more scalpel and a little bit less, you know, sledgehammer. And so it's because of that that, you know, I'm like, okay, Ford, right? Or, you know, looking for those opportunities. But the truth of the matter is that when you have 10 runners, bro, they're not gonna hold their gains. You know, it's really just a matter of
Yeah.
not pre-exhausting yourself, not putting on too much size. You know, that's really what it is. And you know, Ford just it was more than anything, it was just me trying to show the theme of the day and how that theme runs out of gas, and then your job is to recognize that.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Any other topics? Um, Requests for future podcasts? You know, topics? Anything at all? I think we're at the 1 hour mark, so we can just, you know, sort of let one more question or something, and then call it a day. Anybody want to go last? Going once, going
If
twice.
no one's got anything, I'll ask another one, Moshe.
All right, hit me. Give me some volume on your end. You know, I'm mostly deaf, and it's I'm
Yeah,
having
sorry
a hard
about
time
that.
hearing.
You hear me
Cool,
well
cool,
here?
cool, cool,
You hear me well here?
cool. He doesn't want to roast. Can't avoid it, bro. You got to put yourself out there.
So I wanted to circle back to today, this morning, where you said you were looking to be defensive until it showed you that more runners were going to roll in. Now you sent that execution on VV, where you shorted like second bar after the top out, very front side. To me, that doesn't seem very defensive, but so that means you're interpreting defensive trading differently than I am.
Okay.
How does the idea, if you have the idea, I'm going to come in today and be defensive until it proves to me more runners are going to come, how is that idea reflected in your execution? What are you actually doing differently?
Right. I love that question. Was it VEV is the ticker?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and just share it so I can answer specifically about that. Um, Let me make sure that I'm not fucking this up like I did last time. Share screen, entire screen, this thing. Sweet. Okay. I don't know what can be, well, you know, how you can well see it or not see it on these things. Okay. So your question was like, oh, you're going to be defensive, but, you know, this doesn't look like defensive. So reconcile that for me. Is that it?
Pretty much, yeah. What does defensive mean to you? How does that change your execution?
Right. This thing, bro, went from 30 cents to $1.55 like that. Would you say that that's different than every other runner today, except for the D-SPAC that you know went ham?
Yes.
This is it's remarkable. It's remarkable. So when I looked at it, I commented scary, because this is a level of thinness where if I get short and it stays thin like that, that's scary. But then what did I do? I checked to look at the float and the market cap of the company. Did you do that as well?
I did. It's a heavy one.
So heavy, remarkable move. Is it worth the risk? To me, it was.
I see. So when you talk about being defensive, it's not necessarily, maybe it's an execution on certain names, but it's really about kind of going back to the stuff you like to trade, how much of a limb you're willing to go out on. I'd imagine if this had been a million floater, you would never have executed on this because you would have thought that wasn't being defensive.
Correct. Your job every single day is to look for opportunities. That again, I'm an opportunistic discretionary trader. It's my job. My job is to every day look for opportunities. And what does opportunity mean? We spoke about this last week when we talked about how you use the Excel sheet and how you should use the Excel sheet. The opportunity, our job is to say, okay, what's going on today, and what might be an anomaly to that might spell opportunity. So BDRX, the you know where the other question from earlier, it was the largest float of anything running, and it was on news that you could bank is not news that's going to hold this. So that equals opportunity, potential opportunity. We never know, right? But it's, in my mind, that spells potential opportunities. I'm like, aha, that's the anomaly. That's the one I want, BDRX, right? Can you see VEV as being sort of a similar anomaly to that in the way the BDRX was?
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at the sheet, it jumps right out at you.
So that's why. So that's my job. My job is to look for anomalies, to look for opportunities. And you're right. I was going into today defensive. I didn't put that trade on willy-nilly, but when I saw the size of this thing, I was like, bro, that's fucking crazy. Whereas if you, like you said, if it was a 1 milli float, I'd be like, yo, wake me up when it's at $5.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. I think
all
that
holistic stuff in with the menu and
right. Look, man, I don't remember who was. Somebody this morning was like telling me, "Hey, man, I like basically whenever I share this stuff, people are like, "Oh, aren't you worried about edge leak? Just giving it away?" And the answer to that question is always the same. I could give you everything on a silver platter, and the difficult truth is that I'm faced to a room full of people, but most people are not going to be able to take all of that and still execute it well, because the job is to constantly be doing these calculations in real time, constantly marrying all of the variables together, and then coming out with an output that's either I know or I don't know. Or like I think I have a high, it's never I know, but you know what I mean, right? And so that's what's so darn difficult, like you said, marrying all these things. But the way that I see it looking is, as I've said to you guys before, it's not about looking for the biggest percentage runner per se. It's looking for what might be the best opportunity. And the way that I interpret that is by, you look at BDRX and why BDRX that day, this and why this today, or on when GME ran, why plug on the day that it ran. You know what I mean? I'm constantly looking at the menu as you know, and I'm looking for, okay, what's the odd one out? What's the odd one out? And that's what I'm looking for. And this was fucking odd. All right, guys. Let's call it there. One last shout out. One last invitation for absolutely one last one. If somebody has something that they really, really want to ask or know about. Sorry. Oh, that's not okay. One last chance. Anybody has something that they want to ask or?
So when you see like a runner that is running, let's say for example this one. What's the first thing that you check really quickly? Do you just check the flow and the news and that's it? Or do you go through like kind of financials very fast?
I want to make a video about that. Thank you. I'm going to add that to the list of videos. There is, let me just write that down. Let's call that the fast check list process when a runner comes up. It's something that I'd like to answer in much more detail so that you can really take it. But yes, there's a process, and the process goes: what kind of a company is this? What kind of a company is this? Is what industry is this, what float this is, what market cap this is, what country of origin this is there news, no news, if there's no news, is there a filing, if there's no filing, you know what I mean? And how does this fit into the theme of is there a theme today, does it fit into it in some kind of a way? And all that stuff takes seconds. I'm talking about like 10 seconds, more or less. So that, and that puts me in the mind space to say, okay, do I want to zone in on this or not? And if I decided like VEV, you know, I looked at it and it was no low float, it was no small, you know, like it was not a super low market cap, it wasn't a super low float, it wasn't super low anything. And so when you see something like that fucking, you know, quadruples in price on a candle, yeah, you want to zone in on that. Whereas, and so now you start to look at, you know, look for other things and spend more than 10 seconds. But I will put out, thank you for that. That I think that question deserves its own video, and I will do that.
Bro,
Other than
thank
that,
you.
yes. Of course. Always our pleasure, man. That being said, guys, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for the questions. The point is that like I could just there's so many things. There isn't one bless you. There isn't one signal that you need to know. There is 30 different potentials, you know, however many, there's tons of different nuances that you need to know. And we have to go through them one by one. And so you know all of them. And the educational series that we started yesterday with the short traps, that's sort of the goal is, the hope is to go through as many of those as possible so that you have those in your minds. But also, you know, everyone has a different style. Everyone has a different, you know, pain, like challenge that they're trying to overcome right now in their trading. And so whenever you bring something up, you don't know, there's another guy that you know, they need to hear that too. They need, you know what I mean? So thank you. Thank you for showing up. I'd like to continue this, guys. I'm tired. I'm sure you guys are too. It's been an exhausting week. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see y'all Monday.
See you, Mars. Thank you.
See you.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you.